everyone, and welcome to Silver Sunday, this Sunday night on September the 4th, 2022, the year of our Lord. How's everyone doing tonight?
Howdy do.
Good. Thanks.
Excellent. We have a fun night planned tonight. I'm Rolling Man. I'm your host. With me, as usual, is Thomas Formani. Say hi, Tommy.
Howdy do.
Roberta is trying to fix her technical difficulties, and I'm not sure whether we'll see Pete tonight. Wubba's making threats to come, but you know how Wubba is. He promises all the time, and he never makes it. But we have special guests with us tonight, Randy Zimmerman.
Hey, everybody.
What's up,
Hey, thanks,
Randy?
thanks. Yeah, nothing much.
So how does it feel to be on the other side?
Happy to be here.
Of the microphone.
This is all awesome, you know. All the
every time I
podcasting
talk
is
to
fun.
you've always been the host.
Yeah, I'm looking for the controls. They're just not there.
Where are they, right?
Where's all those video clips? Yeah.
I don't like. Randy's like, I don't like this. Yeah, you've got all kind of kind of video clips. So
I still have my bell.
Oh, excellent! There you go.
There we go.
We are
Analog.
Man, gotta love Hyper. Look at this. Hyper's like he's already leaving his comments. Hyper is, oh yeah. He says, I recently learned of the return of Arrow Comics. Curious of the connections and history of the different incarnations of Arrow. We're going to get into that tonight, Hyper, because I'm going to ask him all kinds of questions. I think Zim's and Arrow's path is not exactly like, but similar to that of Silverline.
Or like this.
Yeah. Calculus says Bonacera. What?
Bonacera.
Calculus, you're always dropping words that I can't read. And then he whistles. Calculus, I said Countess, I think. Yeah, that's because I was watching the Red Baron today. Hyper says, yay, go Randy.
Thanks, Hyper Potato.
Arrow, as in the Centaur Publications guy. No. Arrow, Arrow's the character that you're thinking of. Mm-hmm. Arrow Comics was the brand. Arrow was the publisher. So we are going to get into that a little bit. Look at, oh my gosh, I can't believe he exists. Wubba.
Mr. Bubba.
So
Did you hear me throwing shade at you before you joined?
no.
Okay, that's good. That's probably good then.
He takes it back, Bubba.
No, we don't.
All right, so before we get into 20 questions with Randy here, let's talk about our Kickstarter. So we got a Kickstarter. We launched it, guys. We've got 39 backers. We got $17.79 as of right this moment. We've got 14 days to go. So we've got 2 weeks. We are, I can't do math. That looks like it's about 221 bucks away from our goal.
Yep.
So I think so. I'm trying to read comments at the same time. Bobby Westkovich says, hey, big dummy, what's up, Screw Loose? And then Calculus says, I feel like Vic is going to be easier than Calculus. Calculus, I think you're right there. But, you know, I tried to use the first name, so I'm going to go with the Vic. So Kyle Schultz says, hey, Roland, what's up, Kyle? Glad to see you drop by. We're going to talk about Arrow Comics tonight. That's going to be our focus. But you guys get over there to our Kickstarter. We've still got 2 weeks. There's still a lot of art, though. And I just sent out an update about a couple of hours ago. We've added T-shirts. We've got let me see if I can get BJ to bring me in a T-shirt. We got T-shirts. I gotta send her a message. Hey, can you bring me one of the T-shirts? And they look good. We're really happy with them. So we've added Kalis and Twilight Grims to the campaign. Bobby Westwood says, "Big Dummy putting you all on Facebook at home and at home." For those of the uninitiated, Bobby Westkovich means in Mississippi. For those who wonder why I called him Screw Loose, Bobby Westkovich is my father-in-law. So He calls me Big Dummy. I call him Screw Loose. Kyle says, Arrow Comics sounds familiar. Well, they should sound familiar. They've been around for a long time, and we're going to let Randy tell us all about that. But we got to give Wubba's voice on here. Wubba, say hi.
Hi.
Glad you could join us, Wubba. And Oven says, hello, Silverline family. What's up, Oven? Glad to see you again this evening, Oven. So, all right, you guys, I'm just going to start asking the questions, but if y'all have a question, you jump in because you know me. I can. One other thing. Welcome to our LinkedIn audience. We are now streaming to LinkedIn as well. We have, you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and you can now find us on LinkedIn. This is the first week we have been on LinkedIn, so we're going to see how that goes. But because of that, I can't. Okay, so secret. I'm not paying for the biggest StreamYard thing here, so I can't get all of the comments. So I've got to watch LinkedIn to see if anybody leaves comments on LinkedIn. So I will be monitoring the LinkedIn, and so I can't put them up on the screen if you're on LinkedIn and watching. So, but don't let that discourage you from putting comments up there because I am going to watch. Oh man, Hyper, what would I do without you, dude? Thank you so much. Hyper says like and subscribe on the YouTube, kids. Yes, please, y'all like and subscribe. We are trying to reach that 500 number because if we can reach 500, we are going to give away some tickets to the Daytona Beach Comic Con.
Cool.
So, Randy,
Sir,
we want to know your origin story. What was your first comic book work? I know approximately when it was, but tell us about it. How'd you get started in comics?
Grew up in Michigan. I'm in the mid-Michigan area, not Detroit, north of Detroit. Pretty much right about there.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Anyway.
You know who taught me that?
That's how we refer to that. Yeah.
You know who taught me that? Gary Reed.
Okay. There you go.
Caliber Press.
Yep. Great. Yeah. No, I knew Gary for many years. First as a retailer and then as a publisher. But
yeah.
I started back in early mid 80s. The first book that I ever had, or the first story I ever had printed was in the back of a fanzine. Not even the back. It's about the middle of the fanzine called Just Imagine Comics and Stories, which was out of Chicago. And I ran across them. I did a show. I attended a show over in Grand Rapids, hoping to find Mike Gustovich, who at the time was doing Justice Machine.
Yeah.
Because I loved Justice Machine, and I wanted to help him out. You know, a starry-eyed kid. You know, oh, gee, Mr. Gustovich, I'd help you out any way I could. Well, he didn't show up for the show, so. But Dennis Messinger was there.
Okay.
And he said, well, I've got a little publication I do, and let me take a look at your stuff. And he looked at my stuff, and he says, you need to be printed. Send me a story, and I'll print you. So it took me a couple of months, literally sweating bullets, slaving over an 8-page story to send to him, which was kind of cartoony. The fanzine, it was a black and white independent book at the time. It'd be considered an independent comic today. But I got printed in Just Imagine Comics and Stories number 11, I want to say. The Tale of the Lindy Jacks in the Old Tin Box, a little fantasy story about an elf who went around and collected things.
Cool. And
he ends up trading for an old tin box, and everybody laughs at him, especially the big evil king that he got the old tin box from until he opens it up. Giant monster comes out, grabs the king by the face, and pulls him into the box to play. But after that, I was doing the convention circuit and ran into Bill Mesner-Loebs.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I should mention, Just Imagine Comics and Stories started featured artwork by Mark Nelson. I don't know if you're familiar with Mark A. Nelson.
Sure.
Tom Artis was in there, who's somebody that I just loved from the start. What a great person he was. Doug Rice started there. The cover for the book that I'm printed in has Mike Vosberg cover.
Okay, wow.
Of a sorceress woman on it. Yeah, it was really lot of guys that went on to do a lot of great stuff. Then I was at the conventions in Detroit that ran across Bill Messner-Loeb's, and I had a short story involving a dog that was running a special delivery service in space that ended in a really great pun that he rolled on the floor with, and he said that he had to print it. So and before that book saw print, I sent him another short story of a little kid who finds a copy of Journey under his bed and thinks it's a dirty book. And Bill Messner-Loeb's at the time was working on Journey for Aardvark Vanaheim. So in the back of Journey number 11, the little Michael Taylor story ran, and in the back of Journey number 13, the JB Space story ran. That's the dog running the delivery service. And then from there, I bumped into Ralph Griffith and Stuart Kerr, who were starting Arrow Comics.
Okay.
And they were doing they were doing literally a fanzine at the time. And they started out small. They printed a tabloid newspaper publication to start with, and then jumped down to a regular size, comic size publication.
So let's clarify. You're not talking about because back in those days, you probably remember APAs, right?
Oh yeah.
So those
Absolutely.
are different. So those APAs were always photocopies, right?
That was a group of people that contributed photocopies, and then they stapled them all together and mailed them all out to the contributors.
Right.
This was a regular fanzine that was sold at shows and put up in the local retailer shops. So one of those retail shops was Alpha Comics that Gary Reed owned.
Okay. Yeah. Now I was part of some APAs in the 80s.
Me too. I had a couple of those. Yeah, but they were just stapled copies amongst friends. You know, they weren't
right. Yes, they weren't. They weren't like a fanzine that you go to a printer and actually print it out. I mean, these were just Kinko's copies.
Yeah, these were more underground kind of. Isn't that what they were called? Yeah.
Yeah.
Not quite undergrounds. Undergrounds were kind of independent comics that were printed, newsprint comics, usually with a color cover.
Yeah.
That had material in it that was above the Comic Code Authority.
They didn't get newsstand distribution, right? Some of them were in comic shops, but they didn't get newsstand distribution.
The distribution that sprung from those undergrounds really helped start the direct market because they were looking for more stuff to distribute. Phil Suling over on the West Coast, I think it was Jim Friel around here who started Big Rapids distributor. Bud Plant over on the West Coast. All decided to start approaching these other publishers, the comic publishers, to see if they could get comics that they could distribute in their systems, because they were distributing to 20, 30, 40 customers at a time. And then that slowly grew out into the adult market.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Ralph and Stu decided to start printing comics once they saw a copy of Teenage Ninja Mutant Turtles #1 come out. Because that kind of inspired a lot of people to start doing their own.
It really did, didn't it? I mean, so many of us looked at the Turtles and I mean, whether you like it or not, our thoughts were, hey,
I can do that.
I can do that, right?
Exactly.
That's what we all did. Yeah.
Thank you. All right.
I mean, we didn't. That's what we said. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to interrupt you guys for just a second because I was talking about how do I go big solo here? I got to show you guys this. All right. Wait till you see this T-shirt.
Whoa.
Oh,
I know. Roberto said, "Whoa."
Whoa.
How cool is this?
Turned out great.
Yeah, it really did.
And it's smooth.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, it's smooth and soft, and has a nice material. So we're so happy with it. That's why we decided we don't have the Trumps one yet. He said they had printing problems with Trumps, but this one, the Team Beetle, both of them.
I colored it, and it probably didn't print very well.
Say what?
He's not listening. No, I said because Roberta colored it, and so it was too colorful, too many colors. They couldn't print it.
That's funny.
Yeah. So
there's a couple different ways to screen print. One of them is solid color, which that one looks like it is. Each individual color's got an individual screen. And then there's another machine that'll print process color, and those machines are incredibly hard to keep up and running.
Oh yeah, we had one at Kablam, and we shut it down.
Yeah. Kyle says I'll be dipping in and out. I'm actually back at Full Sail for 2 months. Well, holler at me, Kyle.
Cool.
We'll grab a bite. You know me. I like Wendy's and Chick-fil-A right there by campus. So holler at me, man. Vic says I wish fanzines were as abundant as they used to be. Yeah, I think you would think that they were, because of the ease of print on demand. You would think that there would be a lot more than there actually is. Hyper says the Vise, talking about Mike Vosberg.
Yeah.
Kyle says that's cool. I think that's got to be in reference to the T-shirt, I think. And then Vic says, "Dang, yeah, I think so too."
That's a nice print.
Yeah, I'm real happy. We've been looking around, and so many of them is like, "Oh, you got to print 50 shirts in order to get this price." And we're like, I don't. Of course, I'm the eternal optimist, but I'm like, yeah, we can't move 50 shirts.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we can't, we don't need that many. We need like 10, we need 12, something like that. And so we found this printer who said that they could do small runs like that. Kyle says, yes, that was in reference to the shirt. Yeah. So we're excited, but yeah, so back to, the turtles. Well, first, Roberta, I'm glad you got your camera working.
Thank you.
Do you does anybody want to share art, Roberta? Want to share art while we're talking?
No. So I think we had a brownout here. I think that's what happened.
Really?
It hurt my computer a little bit.
Oh, no.
So I can't get my Wacom to see my device. So I'm looking for alternatives. I might be okay, but I can't share first. I'm still testing.
I tried to fully reboot it a couple times before you worried about it.
Yeah, well, the thing is, the first reboot was 10 minutes, and it made me very late for this stream, and I thought, I don't want another 10-minute wait.
Yeah. Well, you
Who
can
knows
just
what's doing.
hang out with us. Hang out with us.
I'll just say hi.
So Tommy, you want to share?
Sure.
What would you set up to share?
I am not.
Okay. So
give me a minute. I'll have it ready.
So we're scattered all over the place.
I'm in
Randy just
Hades,
mentioned
apparently.
he's up in Michigan. Roberta's all the way over on the west in California. Wubba's about halfway. He's in Texas now, and Tommy and I are both in Florida. So
Where there's a massive rainstorm. Right? Did you not just hear the lightning and thunder just strike?
No.
We'll see what happens.
It rained here earlier, so I blew it down to you. So
thanks, I appreciate it. Let's see if I can get this.
So what we were saying, though, we were talking about the turtles, and that's one of the things about the turtles is that when it came out, so many of us looked at it and said, I can do that, right? I mean, I don't know if that's a comment on the work itself, but it was definitely an inspiration to so many of us because we're like, hey, look at these guys.
But Randy did do it. Well, the rest of us, but Randy did do it. So
that's part of a group, so it wasn't just me, but we all learned how to self-publish. Working at Arrow, a lot of us did a lot of other self-publishing gigs as time went on.
Vic is right. It says, and then came the black and white explosion. Yeah, that's exactly right. And I wasn't. I don't know about you, Randy, but I wasn't a huge Turtles fan. But I will forever be thankful to the Turtles because of that. Because if it hadn't have been for that black and white boom, I probably would not have broke in when and where and how I did, because I broke in as part of the black and white boom.
Well, up to that point, comics themselves was such a closed industry. You basically got in if you were a buddy or if you had the connection so much and you were such an irritant to the people working at the offices. They decided to throw you a bone or here, do this or draw that or whatever. Yeah. So the black and white boom started a lot of people's careers.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll get you to we'll get Curtis Fujita to tell you his story about how he got employed at Malibu.
It's a great story.
Yeah, it is a great story back in the early 90s. Okay, so Stuart and
Stuart Kerr, Ralph Griffith decided to start printing comic books. They were primarily writers. They were going out looking for artists to do the properties that they wanted to do. They wanted to keep Arrow strictly creator owned. So everybody that did work at Arrow owned their own IPs.
And you are a writer artist, right?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm more of a writer cartoonist.
Okay.
More
Gotcha.
than anything. If I write something more serious that wants a more serious tone than what I'm used to, I learned how to draw by my uncle giving me a book on how to draw Woody Woodpecker.
Yeah. I remember seeing those ads.
That's how long ago that was. The Lance Studios put one together. It's an easy way to draw. You can still find it on eBay every once in a while. Yeah. I've got a couple of fresh copies of it. One looks like a coloring book, and another one is still in the hardbound with the spine on it. And then I have the copy that I had when I was a kid that's sitting in a plastic grocery bag, literally in shreds, because went through it so much and drew on all of the pages. Right. And it showed how to break cartoons down into basic shapes, and that really spoiled me from that point on. Circle, circle, point. Right. Couple curved lines, and boom, there's Woody Woodpecker's head. But that's really how I learned to do it. I'm a big fan of the old style animation, the dot for the eye, Mickey Mouse, and the early anthropomorphic stuff, Karl Barks material I grew up on reading. My parents didn't allow me to have superhero books when I was growing up because they were too violent.
Wow. Okay.
So I read every other, and I took to comics like a fish out of water. Once I learned how to draw, they rationed me down to 2 pieces of notebook paper a day.
Wow.
So because I was tearing through their notebook paper so much. So I learned really quick how to draw a plus sign inside on each notebook paper. So I had 4 pages instead of 1 on each side. I had 8 pages, 4 on each side. And that's how I taught myself how to draw. And then it was just a natural step to start telling stories, panel to panel to panel.
Gotcha.
So the first book that Arrow Comics decides that they want to print, they don't want to print their own stuff, but they need a guinea pig to break the doors open with, pretty much, yeah. And at that point, I had bumped into another local creator here in the Flint area named Susan Van Camp. And the 2 of us created off of JB Space, that dog special delivery pilot. We created an entire universe of funny animal characters.
That was Aniverse, right?
That was Tales from the Aniverse.
Tales from the Aniverse, yeah.
Yep. And we ran that with Arrow, what we call now Arrow 1.0, or the first incarnation of Arrow, for 6 issues. So, and Susan had gone on to do a lot of the work for the first set of Magic cards.
Oh, okay.
That's cool.
It's that Susan Van Camp. If you're seeing an original set, one of the first sets out, in fact, everybody that did artwork on those cards all got a percentage because they didn't know if they were going to go anywhere. So instead of paying people up front, they paid them a little, just a tiny pittance, and then gave them a percentage. And then once it blew up, they regretted offering everybody a percentage. And they were sending large, very large checks to Sue.
Well, good for them, though.
She picked up every card that nobody else wanted to paint. All of the mundane articles are pretty much done by Susan. If you turn the cards over, Susan Van Camp is credited on it.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Good for her.
We ran through 6 issues of Tales from the Aniverse. Then the black and white bust was was happening. I split off and self-published a lot of stuff and started freelancing any place that I could find. Arrow gets caught. Ralph and Stu really get caught in the distributor collapse.
Oh yeah.
And like Glenwood goes out owing them $60,000, and
oh my goodness,
yeah. Wow. Sunrise went out owing them $20,000. Sunrise ended up turning into Platinum Studios.
Yes,
that started Men in Black and Cowboys and Aliens. And
so we won't go too deep in this, but I know, I'm pretty sure Roberta knows who Sunrise is.
Oh yeah.
So for those who are following us, the connections. We have a lot of Malibu connections, Randy.
Okay.
Sunrise was run by Scott Rosenberg, who went on to become the president of Malibu Comics. So and of course then Platinum. As you mentioned. Yes. Yeah. So, and that's all we'll say about that.
And Ralph and Stu. Ralph and Stu were we were all young. We were all, mostly partiers. We all got together on Friday nights and compared each other's portfolio and picked each other's work apart. And
all right.
All of that. The second book that Arrow ran was a fantasy adventure book off of Ralph and Stu's D&D campaign. That was called The Realm.
I remember I've got probably a whole bunch of them over there.
That ran for quite a few issues, yeah. And then the third one was...
Because Gary picked up that, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
The third one was a zombie book before there were zombie books.
That was Dead World, right?
Night of the Living Dead. That was Dead World with Vince Locke doing the artwork on that.
Yeah. I think
they also
did
Gary
pick up that one also, right?
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Yes, he did. When the distributors went down, owing Arrow so much money, Ralph and Stu were literally heartbroken that they had to stop printing. So they gave up all of their claims to Dead World and The Realm and gave them to Vince Locke and Guy Davis, respectively.
Good on them.
And both of them ended up selling their rights to Realm and Dead World to Gary Reed. That's how Gary ended up with the titles.
Right.
But they also printed Night Streets, which was an urban crime drama that was done by Mark Bloodworth. Sorry, Mark. And another superhero book that Ralph wrote called System 7 with Mark Winfrey doing the artwork on it.
I've got System 7.
Yeah, there were only 2 issues of that were printed.
I was going to say, I don't remember how many of those I have. I don't remember many. But in fact, I only remember one.
And I served as Arrow's art director pretty close to the end. Then I had another offer to start self-publishing. So I started doing that and published a couple of issues of Anniverse under the Weeby Comics banner. The distributor thing went down, and Weeby also printed one issue of The Realm, which was issue number 13, because the artwork, everything on the book was already done, and Ralph and Stu couldn't print it. So we took it on.
Well, regrettably, I don't remember that Weeby Comics.
Yeah, it didn't last long.
Yeah,
didn't last long. 2 issues of the Anniverse, and
gotcha.
The issue of an issue of The Realm, a collection of Dead World, and then we stopped.
Okay. Vic says, this I'm not even gonna try that. That's a Woody Woodpecker, right?
Yeah, that's what.
Hyper said, "Did Sunrise offer a mail order service?" I don't know the answer to that. I don't recall.
They were a full-fledged distributor.
Yeah.
That distributed up and down the West Coast, just like Bud Plant went pretty much worldwide, and he did a lot of specialty art books.
Bud Plant, Friendly Franks.
At the high point, Arrow was distributed by 24 different distributors around the world. Yeah.
Wow. I remember, and of course Tommy knows this, but in the early, before we went with Malibu, the early Cat and Mouse, we tried to publish ourselves. We had orders from 19 distributors.
Okay.
This would have been 88.
Yeah.
There was a ton of them.
Yeah. Hyper says The Realm introduced us to Guy Davis. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
Yep. Guy Davis did that. And he went on to do Baker Street at Caliber. Yep. He did the Marquee that was at Oni, I believe, for a bit. And then Sandman Mystery Theater.
Yeah.
And then Hellboy over at Dark Horse.
I think Baker Street is one of those real unsung black and white comics from the 80s. I was a fan of Baker Street. I thought when I first saw it, it was one of those, because I was a Marvel zombie. I heard you say this the other day too. I was a Marvel zombie, and so when the art was weird to me, but after you kind of read it a little bit, you're like, hey, this is pretty good.
Yeah. Well, by that point, Guy had changed his art style because originally he was heavily influenced, let's say, by the movie Rock and Roll, if you remember that.
I remember that, yeah.
Done by Nelvana. But his style really resembled that, right down to the animated look and the bent. Everybody picked on his noses for looking like bent coat hangers.
Yeah, whatever.
But he had an incredible individual style.
Yes, he did.
And when he started doing Baker Street, it just got a little scratchier. Baker Street took place in 80s punk England.
Yeah.
And had it was almost like an alternate universe because it had a Sherlock Holmes and Watson equivalent, which were a couple of punk girls.
Right. Yeah.
It was a real unique property that would have been really big if anybody if anybody ever bothers to do a live action version of it.
Yeah, no kidding.
I'm pretty sure Guy has the rights to that at the moment. So
what year was this? What year would have been that you would say Arrow 1.0 kind of ceased to be?
87, I think 86, okay. Early 87, right. Probably.
Okay. Yeah, earlier than I was thinking. Okay.
Yeah, but nobody really got out of comics because we still wanted to do comics. It's just that Ralph and Stu were poor and couldn't turn any books around, and the distributors at that point were imploding greatly, way down to one. And all that hassle was going on, but nobody wanted to stop printing comics.
Right.
So a year or so afterwards, Ralph got back into doing it and did Arrow again for a very short period of time, printed a couple of issues of Fantastic Fanzine and a couple of issues of The Dead, which was another zombie comic since he couldn't do Dead World. He wanted to keep doing a zombie comic. So he did The Dead with Jason Moore and Jeff Lafferty.
Okay. Yeah. I know both those guys. Yeah.
Yeah. And Jason really came in helping out on the inks on the Realm that I was doing at that point with Caliber. So it got to the point where I wrote a couple of issues of the Realm and I was inking over John Dennis's work and Jason was helping me out.
John Dennis is I think Tommy, didn't you ink a John Dennis on Nightman?
If it's the same one, yeah.
It might not be John. It might not be the same one, but that's a name. He
was a full-time lawyer, part-time penciler. Is it the same guy?
No, this would have been a full-time insurance agent.
All right, different guy.
Yeah,
out of Pontiac. So last I knew, he was still selling insurance.
Vic says, I used to be a Marvel zombie. I threw away so much Pacific Eternity comic stuff that I would randomly get. It's so unfortunate, but I know back prior probably to the Turtles for me, I mean, like early 80s, I saw a lot of that independent stuff on the shelves at my comic shop and I just ignored it. Mm-hmm. It's like, it's not Spider-Man. I don't want it, and it was, I kind of look back and regret, because now that's kind of what I buy now. I go and I search all the cheap boxes and I buy Pacific Comics, the Atlas Comics and First and Comico. And Vic says, I gotta get a bunch of issues of the Realm. Well, Randy, are those still available?
Only at the more the better collectors, and some of your better retailers might still have them available. Yeah. But
so the only way to get them now is the back issue box.
Oh, right? Yeah. I keep telling Eric, who's running Caliber right now, that they really need to go through and colorize all of that artwork. Guy is not very happy with the way that artwork is anymore. Just like most of us artists, when you look at your younger stuff and you go, ooh, don't, just don't.
Right. Yeah.
So that's pretty much where he's at with the Realm material, even though it is beautiful and classic stuff and it's very animated looking. If somebody were to go through and paint those like an anime cell, it would look like a whole different animal, and the stories are still incredibly done and the artwork would just pop. I think it would be a heck of a product if he were to go through and do that. But I'm not sure what Eric's got planned for the property.
And we've got the technology exists today. It's so I mean, that's one of the things that Roberta, it's kind of how
I've been doing.
Yeah, it's kind of how we hooked her in, is that she's like, I want to color, and so hey, we've got these these books that we're scanning and digitizing, and she's like, all right, sign me up. So
I know exactly what you mean.
So yeah. All right, so were you involved in the? Go ahead, Roberta.
I'm back in business. If Tommy feels like he'd like me to share, I can do that.
What, you trying to kick me off?
No, just saying. I'm back.
Ready? You let Roberta take over.
Well, no. I was gonna say it's just 8:30, so we'll let you. We'll give you about 10 more minutes.
Okay.
And then
thanks, Roberta, trying to kick me off.
I am not. Give you a break if you want it. That's all.
So Randy, were you involved with that second go at Arrow?
No, at the time I was printing. under the masthead of Massive Comics.
Massive Comics. Okay.
Yeah, Weeby didn't last very long. Massive also didn't last very long. I did 3 more bi-monthly issues of Tales from the Aniverse.
Okay.
As Massive Comics, and Adult Comic as Massive Comics. It's called Escapade. So that was called, and it's got a solid red cover. It's it's a funny book. It's an adult funny book. That's how we advertised it. But at that point, I stopped. The numbers that I was getting on Aniverse were really low, and the numbers that I had gotten on the adult book were really solid, and we were asking $2.95 for a cover price on that, which was really high at the time. And I really didn't want to keep doing hardcore adult material. So I stopped doing Massive Comics. At that point, Ralph had stopped doing Arrow Comics 2.0 again. Couldn't keep that rolling. The issues of the Dead he did were pretty notorious. They had double covers, a tamer cover and a really intense, gory graphic cover that they could never get past the Canadian border.
Wow.
Because they were so severe. Yeah, those covers are pretty classic. And again, that was Jason Moore and Jeff Lafferty did that material. Then was stopped for a little bit, and then I got some interest to restart self-publishing with an old friend of mine who has a comic shop up in Saginaw.
Okay.
So I retailed for over a decade back during the 80s and 90s. And I had actually hired him as an employee at the shop. And he went off and started his own comic shop and had built it up to a nice little empire, along with a collaborator. And that was Galaxy Comics up in Saginaw. And he says, hey, why don't we start printing comics again? And I talked to Ralph and Stu. And because Arrow Comics was always a creator-owned title, a creator-owned imprint, Ralph said, just go ahead and use the Arrow name, because they didn't have any plans on using it again. So Arrow 3.0 was back in the mid to late 90s, all the way through about 2003. And we printed over 50 products.
Wow. That's a lot of books.
We printed the Dark Oz miniseries that finished off the Oz book that Ralph and Stu were writing with Caliber, with Bill Bryant doing the artwork. We finished off that series. We did a small Wonderland series. I did another War of the Worlds, 2 more issues of a 5-part War of the Worlds story that still hasn't been finished to this day. And a bunch of other titles.
So you picked up some of so when Caliber ceased printing, you picked up some of the Caliber books then.
Caliber was printing off and on at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, because I know Gary stopped doing print books there for several years.
Yeah, for a while.
And then I think I talked to Gary around 2010-ish, something like that, and he was getting ready to start the I forget what the name of it is, but it was digital only.
Okay. Drive-Through Comics, I think it was. That he was associated with. I think Drive-Through was one of the digital companies that he was into with.
Oh crap! I probably still got a contract from him on my computer somewhere. I can't remember what it was called. Keep wanting to say Innovation, but that wasn't Innovation.
No, it wasn't. Innovation was Dave Campetti.
No, yeah.
He did Gauntlet for a little while.
I had a Gauntlet book in the early 90s.
Oh, I had a Gauntlet book running too. That didn't get very far. It was supposed to be part of a Walmart deal. Yeah.
Actually, Cray was Gauntlet.
Okay.
Bubba?
Yeah, I had a question. Was the Arrowverse 4 or 3.0, is that during the time that you were running Somatic Lace?
Yes.
Yeah, that was an amazing book.
Yes, it was. Sherrod Jackson did that. We printed 2 issues of that. And he ended up finishing that off and having it printed incredibly small, down at the old anime digest size, just about from Image and Devil's Due. I think that was in on that at the same time. I was always upset at that because Sherrod was such a great artist that you could have blown that artwork up to tabloid or treasury size, and it still would have been detailed.
Wow.
You know, it's
the book was amazing. I always you know, with Wizard Magazine, I always waited for them to cover it. They should have covered that book at least once. It was amazingly done.
Well, the only book that Wizard ever covered of ours back during that period was the book I had. My disgust with Diamond was so bad because Diamond was getting to the point where they were telling us what we could or could not print. So there were titles that we were especially proud of that we were promoting that Diamond would say, no, you can't print it because you've been under your minimums for such and such an amount, though we were still making some money at it. Diamond decided that they didn't want to carry it anymore, and they told us that they wouldn't distribute the book for us.
Wow.
But the only book that Wizard ever promoted, I was so disgusted with Diamond, I was going to flip them off and do an editorial comic using a monkey of mine a monkey character called Spank. Yeah. And I was going to talk about the entire industry and how much Diamond sucked and all of this on a book that Diamond would have distributed and flipped them off at the end of the book. So when I pitched it to them, and we were at the time, we were in having so much crap from them that we were starting to play games with them. And we found out that the only way that we could really get their attention is like playing little mind games with them.
Oh man.
And it got to the point where they were editing our submissions that we were sending in. They were cutting out. I sent them a book that was all that was beautifully done manga book, and they literally edited out every reference to the word manga in the solicitation when they solicited for it.
Really?
And then they printed the image of the cover literally about 3/4 of an inch by 3/4 of an inch. And when I confronted them on it, actually, one of the big main duty that Scott Moore had, the guy, a friend of mine from Galaxy Comics had, was to deal with Diamond because I was so fed up with him. The response that we got from them is that they could edit us any way that they wanted to. They could display us any way they wanted to. And that's how they chose to display us. And it was a beautiful book.
Wow.
So I ended up canceling. I got orders for 500 on that book, and I needed 800 to break even at the time because we were mass printing and newsprint over at Printing Press and Litho in Windsor. So we canceled the orders on that book, much to the dismay of the creative team. They were just crushed. And I said, let's sit on it for 6 months and we'll repackage it and we'll resell it.
Yeah.
So 6 months later, we renamed the book. I started an imprint and just to piss Diamond off, really, called Arrow Manga, specifically to carry the book. And said, we're starting a new imprint. We've just picked up this great title from this underground exclusive Korean artist that nobody has heard of. That's really raw. The book is incredible. I sent them a copy of the book because it had been done for like a year. It was done like 6 months before I had solicited for it. We called it by the antagonist name, which was a girl assassin called Butterfly Gun.
That's cool.
And we had a new cover on it, and I sent it to them, told them we had exclusive North American rights by the famed artist Shiro Otomo, and we were gonna print that book. Diamond was happy to put it in the catalog, uncut, with the solicitation complete, with a regular size cover picture, and we ended up getting orders on that for about 3,000.
Wow, nice.
So we printed that, and we were able to. The way Arrow always worked was the lion's share of the profit always went to the creative team, and so we were able to give a nice check over to those guys because they had waited for 6 months while we went through and waited to refashion that book.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was going to do Spank the Monkey #1, and I was going to tell the industry off. And I had written off stuff at the top of my head. Spank wakes up in the morning. Spank loves coffee, hates SUVs, blah, 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 blah. And I sent them the solicitation, and I sent them the cover illustration, with much to my, dismay, because I had put Spank and his brain dead cousin Shock wedged in a cleavage with a girl wearing a large breasted, at the time. The circle template era was well in play at that point,
right?
With a girl in
a
fluorescent pink bikini top. You know, it wasn't a photograph. It was I had drawn up the cover, and they loved the cover so much they printed the entire solicitation. They spotlighted the book, and they sent the book to Wizard. and the cover illustration. And Wizard had me in a box in one of their magazines. The only time we ever got covered with Wizard, with the title on the edge section, and they literally said anybody who does a cover with two monkeys wedged in a girl's cleavage has to be a genius. Along with a picture of that cover.
That's funny.
When we saw that, we were freaking, and so I spent a week and a half stopping what I was working on and doing. Spank wakes up in the morning. Spank loves coffee. He hates SUVs. Everything that was in the solicitation was in that book, and we printed Spank the #1, and again got orders for about 3,000.
Wow.
So we did a Chicago con, a Wizard con. It was one of the early Wizard cons in Chicago that year. And we blew that. I've still got the picture here. We blew that cover up to the size of an old style movie poster and stuck it back behind us on the table. And we moved through two cases of books.
Good.
That show, just boom. And everybody would walk by and point at that picture and says, I saw that in Wizard. I need to buy that book.
Wow.
Yeah, I think I still have my copies of it somewhere.
Well, you're one of the few. I don't see it anywhere anymore. If I'm lucky enough to see it at a show, I buy a copy because I don't have any for myself.
Wow.
I've got one beat up copy that I have in a notebook.
Yeah, mine's pretty beat up, but I still got it somewhere.
That's about it. Yeah.
Wow.
And that title ran for 4 issues, and then the sales started dropping on it because I couldn't concentrate on it enough to keep working on it, because I was trying to get everybody else's books out to press. And eventually we stopped doing Arrow Comics.
Yeah.
So because the numbers were dropping and we were really fed up with Diamond, I ended up doing a 3-part Spank the Monkey on the comic market anyway, where Spank flips everybody off at the end, but not until after he explains to everybody that out of anybody that was making money doing independent books, Diamond was making the most because they were skimming as a middleman in between point A and point B. They were always making so much per unit.
Mm-hmm.
And I had figured out that Diamond was making more money than me, and why should I be making money for Diamond when I'm not making, hardly enough for myself? So we stopped printing regular comics. We printed a couple of collections and then ran into a hassle with Diamond again. I had a collection together that I had print on demanded them and solicited to them. They wouldn't talk to us about whether or not they were going to take it. And then like 4 or 5 months later, we finally got a rep to talk to us to tell us that they weren't going to take the book because it was superheroes and it was in black and white. Huh. And none of the retailers wanted black and white superheroes. So they weren't going to take the book.
Wow.
That was their excuse. But all of the reps at the time could do whatever they wanted with the people that they had. And before that, we had already tracked down at another Chicago con. We had tracked down our Diamond rep in an elevator, and he basically told us that anybody that's in the green section, Diamond just wants to dry up and blow away. Yeah, that was his exact words.
Yeah.
And so we kind of figured that there wasn't any way out, that the days were numbered. In about 2003, we stopped printing Arrow Comics.
2003. Got a couple comments here. Let's catch up on those. Oven says, I appreciated a fun, free comic day where I met Aaron Conley, and I owe Roland for how much I love indie comics. Well, thank you, Owen. We appreciate that. We got a chance to see Owen, me and Tommy and John and Jose and Haley a couple of weeks ago. At Infinity down in Kissimmee, and we're hoping Owen will make it up to Daytona where he gets to see a bunch of us. Cassisi, you mentioned Saginaw earlier in Michigan, and I confirmed to him that it was Michigan. And then he says he's originally from Michigan. Awesome to see that good stuff came from that part of the country. So
good. Thank you, man.
There you go.
Appreciate you.
Hyper says the Dead covers were Tim Vigil levels of violent.
Oh yeah.
And anyone who doesn't know who Tim Vigil is, just Google some of his art, but be prepared for your eyeballs to be shocked. That's a good word.
Tim is the definition of an adult artist.
Very much so.
And I blame him completely for introducing me to strip clubs.
Hyper Potato says, "Oh Lord, that's a jerk move," says Vic, and he's talking about what Diamond did.
Yeah.
And then Randy, he calls you a legend. He says this man is a legend.
Thank you so much.
Well, Vic, that's why we have him on here. We want to talk to him.
My face is getting redder.
It's covered by your hat.
Yeah. Well, that's the glow there.
Yeah. Oh, turn down the light.
Exactly.
So Hyper has a question for you here, Randy. He says, do you remember what the print runs were like for the Weeby comics? That issue of the Realm is much harder to find than the other issues.
Yes, it is. I think the print run on Realm 13 was 2,000. I'm pretty sure that's what it was, because that was the minimum that we could safely print from printing.
Yeah.
Which is where we got that done at. And the really good price break, the one that at the 800 mark, was at 3,000. If we printed 3,000, we broke even at 800 orders. And there was a lot of Arrow 3.0 that was break even.
Yeah. Yeah. And this would have been late 90s, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Late 90s to 2003.
I think there was a lot of comics in that window that was just break even.
Yeah.
Well,
we learned really early on that we were what we're referred to as a pulls only company. Most everybody in the green section were pulls only. The customer had to come into the retailer and specifically ask or order the book off of previews in order for them to get it.
Yeah.
And initially we had started out at Arrow Comics printing War of the Worlds, an anthology book, Dark Oz, and Wonderland, which were all titles I thought would sit on the shelves that people would automatically recognize, except for maybe the anthology book, which the anthology book only ran for 4 issues, and we had to stop that because the sales were so bad on it. But then once we learned we were a pulls only company, we started, I went back to the original Arrow philosophy and became genre specific. We started doing a barbarian book. We did a funny, a cartoony book, a couple of manga books, but everything was very specific to an individual genre. Even except for the books that came to us that we had to print, like Semantic Lace. Sherrard brings you the prettiest book you've ever seen. You sit there and you go, I got to print this.
Yeah.
So, and that's the way that went.
Yeah. Yeah. There's occasionally those things happen, right? You're like, this has got to be. So you said that was through about 2003?
Yeah, about 2003. I really didn't want to stop printing comics, but I also had to make a living. So I got in. Yeah. The main way I was paying the bills during that period, because you didn't do independent comics to be rich back then. You did independent comics for the love of it. And you hoped that you broke even.
Wait, do you do independent comics to be rich today?
No, but there are now, thanks to crowdfunding, you actually have a chance at making a profit.
Yeah.
Which is night and day to the way the situation was back in the 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah. If you're a pull only, you have to figure out how to market to the consumer and not the retailer, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So we stayed alive for a while. And like I said, we printed like 56 different issues of stuff. And we stayed alive for a little bit. We were about to go under with when we printed Spank #1, that kept us alive for about another year and a half or so.
Yeah.
And then I went out doing a 3-part Spank the Monkey on the comic market, where I finally got to do the Spank flipping people off and just basically walking away. And even that book was late. We had special dispensation from Diamond to be a couple of weeks overdue on that purchase order, because it was the last of a 3-part series, and we told them we weren't going to be printing regular comics anymore. They were happy to hear that, so they were happy to give us those couple of weeks.
Yeah. Well, it's funny to kind of hear,
and I'm sure they were happy to see us go.
Yeah. It's interesting to hear you say, you were kind of, you had to cut back and you had to print that to get to the next level. What a lot of people don't realize when they look at the history of Malibu, of course, I know Roberta knows this, a lot of what Malibu was doing in those last few years is like, hey, we just got to figure out how to get us to next month, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. How's this book going to get us into next month?
Yep.
And, that
it was hard.
Yeah, it was tough. So,
we were constantly flipping money in those days.
Yeah. All right, so Vic, I see your question here. I'm going to hang on to that for just a minute because I think that's going to come towards the end of this. The next Roberta, you want to pop your art up? I sent a message.
Sure.
You didn't see it.
Sure.
So
No!
so 4.0, which is where you are now.
Yeah.
Right. So it's 2022. When did you start 4.0?
Well, there's a little step between 2003 and about 2006. I got into the apparel printing business.
Okay.
Myself with a couple of other investors, cohorts. Really had a guy from printing. I handled the artwork, and another guy to handle the sales. We did that for 2 or 3 years, but could never get away from doing comics, and I was still freelancing whenever I could or wherever I could, and still doing little bits here and there. And I was doing as much commercial work as I could get my hands on. Then about 2009, about 2009, I hit upon the idea. I had gotten involved about 2004 with a political newspaper around here, an alternative paper. It's where Flint's the home of Michael Moore, and Moore really got his start doing an alternative political paper called started out being the Flint Voice and then turned into the Michigan Voice.
Okay.
And then he started filming documentaries in the mid 70s, but that mindset never really left a lot of people in the area. So one of the guys here decides to start up another political paper, and as soon as I see that there's an alternative paper up there, I volunteered to do whatever comic strip work or comic illustrations that he might need.
Sure.
So I started doing a comic strip in there called The Spark. That ties back to it's a Flint inside joke. But anyway, I became their cartoon editor.
Wow,
there.
That's cool.
And with a bunch of other artists in the area that were doing editorial political style cartoons, and did that for a while as a newspaper. And I was thinking, man, this would be a cool thing to do if we could do one that's just all comics and not a lot of politics, because he was getting a hard time making ends meet. He was very what you would call progressive now, back during those days.
Right.
And about 2009 or so, I got with an old friend of mine, and the two of us decided to get in and try to start our own newspaper, our own entertainment paper here in the area. So I did Flint Comics and Entertainment. I got a copy of it around here somewhere. Here we go. I did Flint Comics and Entertainment.
Cool.
That was monthly. That was advertiser supported. It folded out like a newspaper. Had all sorts of advertisements in it. But we also carried all sorts of comic strips and entertainment style articles. Just anything I thought anybody would want to read that had a level of quality to it. Some local artists, some syndicated strips, some old time stuff like Popeye and and Henry Flash Gordon, that kind of stuff.
Color there too.
Some syndicated. Yeah, the middle was in color. There were 2 outside pages that were in black and white. But I did that monthly. That was advertiser supported. We got a series of red newspaper boxes that we stuck around the county.
Cool.
So any place within about a 25-50 mile radius of my house, you could walk out once a month to a restaurant or a convenience store, any place that you walk in and you see those free publications, those real estate mags and natural awakenings, that kind of thing. You pick up a funny paper, funny paper.
Yeah.
And it took about a year and a half to catch on, and it went really well there for a few more years until about 2014, and the Flint water crisis happened.
Oh, yeah.
And all of our mom and pop, all of our independent advertisers just had no money to spend. We were in severe economic downfall here in a bad way. I kept it going through 100 issues, sometimes dipping into my savings, back to the old independent comic days where you're just barely breaking even every issue. You'd make a little bit of money and lose a little bit of money on the next issue or whatever. We printed 10,000 of each copy of that, of each book, of each edition of the Flint Comics. Did 100 different issues. And anything that I got back, and I insisted on getting returns from the distributor that I had. anything that was readable, we would do conventions and just hand them out to people.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Mostly in the area. So everybody got to know what Flint Comics was. And the like I said, we carried some local talent in there too, like Kurt Kolka's The Cardinal and Matt Fazell's Cynical Man. And it was a really good run there for a long period of time, but I just couldn't sustain it. So I had to shut that down as well. Then I got involved with, while I was doing Flint Comics, I was throwing conventions once a year locally at our local farmers market, little one-day shows. It got to be 2 times a year there towards the end, and where anybody that worked on Flint Comics got a free table.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's my way of saying thanks, and the fact that I wasn't paying them to contribute to the newspaper, but all I was getting was one-time print rights anyway, and they could take their strips and do whatever they needed to. Very much the same philosophy as Arrow Comics has now, as has always had. But
MegaCon used to have that agreement with a lot of the what was the company over in Tampa, Tommy?
What was that guy?
The publisher.
They were big. What was the name of the guy?
They were big. Yeah. Marvel Bottom.
CrossGen.
CrossGen. Yeah. MegaCon used to have that kind of agreement with the CrossGen creators.
That's
basically cool. They said, hey, if you want to come to our show, you get a table and you get put on the guest list.
Sweet.
Well, CrossGen bought MegaCon at one point.
Yeah.
Back when they had money.
Yeah. But that doesn't exist anymore, though.
No.
With the new owners.
But while I was doing those shows, I ran across Varian Grant. Varian Grant was starting a podcast channel called Indie Volt, and I got involved with them. Well, once I was involved with them, Varian also wanted to do comic distributing, independent comic distributing. CrossGen.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
There we are, Hyper Potato.
We can always depend on Hyper. So approximately what year would this have been, Randy? Roughly.
Roughly, I would say 2019, 2018. It was right. It was about 2019. It was about the same time we were shutting the paper down.
So this
started up with Indie Volt. Go ahead.
This is interesting because this is right around the kind of same timeline as Silverline.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of attention was starting to come out for crowdfunding and that kind of stuff. We were talking about crowdfunding stuff, and I did crowdfund an anthology book that we called Arrow Volt Revolt or Indie Volt Revolt.
Mm-hmm.
That was about 140 pages of material. It was a nice product. I still got a few copies sitting around because I slightly overprinted that. Then
you should.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out what to say next.
So let me go ahead and put this question up here then, and kind of help you then. So Vic says, with the revival, are you going print on demand?
Right now I have to.
Yeah.
So in order to get more product out there, we will be print on demand. But with Varian started Liberty distribution, and then Varian started telling us that he had all these big deals in the works.
Right.
And he got a group of us together to do a gang print, a set of 9 books that we were just especially proud of. We were so giddy about this deal. They had all of these promises done. And we were going to be in a national retailer, and it was going to be a big deal for
I remember that.
Yeah. I mean, who wouldn't be excited about that?
A big monthly push. We ended up printing 3,000 copies of a set of books that are just
each title, right?
Of each title, yeah.
Yeah. So you're talking 3 times 9. You're talking 27,000 books.
Yeah, and those books were incredibly well done. I got a copy of HeroBot Zero here. Mm-hmm. The printer that we had doing it had never printed comics before, so he actually ran 3 staples down the spine of the book to secure it. The paper is just super slick, just beautiful print job. Everything in the books are. This is my book. This is my cartoony style. This is a character I have called HeroBot Zero. He's a tenacious little robot, 3 foot tall, that has a full arsenal on his body. Whatever you think he can shoot out of it, he shoots out of it. and he goes around and fights giant monsters and crazy menaces to protect his city.
Nice.
As long as he's on the clock. So, and he insists on hazard pay and time and a half. So
he likes his breaks, huh?
He does.
Yeah.
Let me get you back up here, Randy.
Likes his breaks. There we are. We had the whole every one of the issues that we printed were 32 pages. They were really nice and thick. They're super stiff. They're just one of the. I don't exaggerate when I tell folks it was the most beautiful print job I had ever seen, and at that point I'd been printed for like 30 years.
Yeah,
just gorgeous looking books. And then come to find out that it was all empty promises and nothing was real, and we ended up taking all of the books back. And at in between that time, while we were working on the deal, things were going on. The bug was happening, and
so you did get the books back then.
Yes. Yeah,
okay, that's good. Good.
I have a garage. I have a garage full as we speak.
Yeah. I had heard, you know how those things go. I had heard that you didn't get all of your books.
No, we got.
Okay.
Well, any discrepancies are so minuscule that we're not counting it. We're just saying we got the product back.
Sure.
So.
Gotcha.
Then we ran a couple of crowdfund campaigns, the Long Shots campaign on Indiegogo and the Fellowship of the Indies over on Kickstarter, and moved a couple hundred copies of each book, which lightened the financial burden a little, not a lot, but a little. Yeah. But in the meantime, I was paying for artwork, and I was in full production. I was producing 4 books a month.
Wow.
And I was ready to go. I was 3 books in, working on the 3rd month on titles of stuff. Then, then we got hit with COVID.
Right.
And before I came down with COVID, Ralph Griffith, as the deal was starting up and starting to roll, Ralph had COPD already. His lungs were already damaged. He went into the hospital with bad lung problems, and the hospital told him he had COVID.
Oh my goodness!
Even though they tested him for three times up the nose, and all 3 times it was negative, they still told him he had COVID, and there was probably something wrong with the test because he had all the symptoms.
Right. And
he kept telling them, "No, I've got COPD. I've had it before. This is another attack." So, in their wisdom, they stuck him in the COVID wing.
Oh no! And then he got COVID.
Then he did get COVID.
2 weeks later, he goes home. 2 weeks after that, he gets COVID, and he's back in the hospital again.
No.
Well, when he gets out of there, after having survived COVID, luckily he wasn't put on a respirator. He comes out with completely damaged lungs, with the COVID on top of the COPD, and because he had diabetes as well, because he had that, he couldn't get on a transplant list for new lungs.
Right.
So the hospital basically gave him oxygen, told him to go home and live his best life, and see you later.
Man,
that's terrible.
So he went home while we were podcasting. I have a Sunday morning show called Sunday Funnies that's at 9 a.m. Now it's over on the Indie Comics Network. But
I've been on it.
Yeah, I've been on it. Just done it last week. Yeah.
Yeah.
We had Ralph and Stu on, and we got the history of Arrow 1.0 down from them. We got Ralph and Stu on video, got a nice long interview. And at that point, Ralph knew that his days were numbered.
Yeah.
And in December of 2020, December of 2020, Ralph passed. He died in his sleep, never woke back up. But he had come to, conclusions that he knew he was passing, and he figured that he had lived the life that he had lived, and
that was it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hyper said, I just got Hero About Zero on eBay recently.
Oh, well, good for you. I hope did you pay more than cover price? Did you pay $5 for it?
Hey, Hyper, if you're still looking for some, I know where you can find them.
I've got a couple thousand sitting in my garage right as we speak. Yeah.
You can swing by the house and get it.
Randy, if you don't know Hyper's name, Hyper is absolutely a big independent supporter.
Cool. Yeah, well, it takes it takes folks like that
Absolutely.
We're finding. There's more of these guys popping up every day doing exactly what Jim Friel and Phil Suling and Bud Plant used to do. They're getting spiral racks and they're going out and servicing different locations.
Yeah.
with independent comics. We've got a guy now in North Carolina that does it. I'm sorry, Justin, I don't remember the name of your company, but he's going around now he's got about 15 locations with spiral racks or bookcases that he's distributing alternative comics to. And we need to have more people like that are that industrious to go out there, because a lot of us, I'm sure you would if you could, and I know I would, will move this stuff out to people wholesale if they want to take the chance to take it around to different locations and sell it for cover price. And I think there's more guys like that springing up all the time.
This is not that conversation, but and Tommy and I talk about this a lot. I think we don't have a product problem in the industry. We have a distribution problem.
That's exactly right.
And the problem is that we don't have a way to get it into the hands of people who aren't already comic book fans.
Yeah.
If our distributor, our one distributor, ships to the comic shops.
Yeah.
Right? There, you don't find them at Walmart and 7-Elevens and that kind of place anymore. Oh, here we go. Hyper says, I bought a lot of new Arrow books on eBay. I was thrilled to see them return. So glad Randy is still around making comics.
Thank you so much, Hyper. Yeah.
I've said for a long time we have a distribution problem, and it's not, the content is there.
Distribution and accessibility. If those two problems were solved, comics would be raging right now.
Yep.
Because I tell everybody this and mean it sincerely. The need, the quest for entertainment out there, especially in the kids right now, is so desperate that they're willing to read books in reverse to get their entertainment.
Yeah. Well, and without going too far, when I dare say, when all of us on this, all of us here, when we were buying comics, they were accessible to everybody. Right?
Yep.
You could, they weren't called all ages, and they weren't even written for all ages. They were, Stan Lee was always quick to say that he was writing for a college age audience. That was his target audience, but they were accessible to everybody. You could take any of Stan Lee's written books and hand them off to your 8-year-old nephew or niece, and it would be just fine, right? There were maybe things in there they wouldn't understand, but that they were still accessible.
Yes.
And the problem is today, again, there's so many Marvel and DC, right? That you're like, I'm not going to give this to my 8-year-old niece or nephew, right? I'm like, no, I'm not giving that to them. And so that's just a big problem.
Well, we've gone through 30 years under one distributor that has told all of their customers, who are retailers, not the readers, but the retailers are their customers. That's why you have so many variant books and collector's item books, and they're trying to drain that retailer dollar as much as they possibly can.
Yep.
And they've been told over and over again that their audience fits a specific demographic. And it was a study that was done 30 years ago, long before this art form blew out, thanks to the MCU and the other superhero movies that have sprung up. And your primary audience had always been, up until a couple of years ago, mostly male, mostly white, 25 to 55. And that was it.
Yeah.
That was all that they wanted product to aim for. That's all that they took product to aim. Well, I'm a testament to the fact that they tried to chase me out of the business for doing anything but that material in color.
Right.
That's all that they were looking for. That's all they wanted to promote. That's all they want, unless you were a goofy or funny or odd, that odd duck book that they thought was underground enough to promote, or like Spank or funny enough to do, you know?
Yeah.
And much to their dismay, literally, that's why manga it's got the foothold into the market as much as it does now. Also the fact that it is quality work. There's a lot of incredibly great stuff out there that's well worth the time to track down and read, and some truly genius material. But that's because over in Japan, all of us, everybody here that works in sequential art, are all treated as real artists. Yeah. You get out of the United States, everybody who does this kind of work is considered to be a high artist.
An artist, yeah.
As if we were painting, as if we were filming,
And over here, they ask you, what do you do for a real job?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, oh, I'm a comic book. I work in comics. Oh, what do you do for a real job? Vic says we need books available in grocery stores and gas stations. I absolutely agree.
Yep.
Have you guys heard that the Dollar Tree now has comics in it? I didn't go today. Stephen Butler sent me a note earlier today, and he was in his Dollar Tree, and there was books that he's never heard of, brand new books that Dollar Tree is actually putting together that they're selling for $1.25. You know, because it's not a Dollar Tree anymore; it's $1.25 tree.
Right.
That makes sense.
But yeah, I'm gonna run by tomorrow. Well, I guess not tomorrow. Well, they should be open tomorrow, even though it's a holiday. But I'm gonna go. I'm gonna
labor.
Yeah, that's true. So yeah, Dollar Tree has got original comics. Supposedly going by what Steven said.
Wow,
that might be a localized test market, depending on where Dollar Tree is located. But
Lucedale, Mississippi. What a test market!
Yeah, I can't wait to see what those comics are.
I'll check my Dollar Trees around here too. That's awesome. If they're that's great.
I'm gonna look at what he wrote me earlier and see what he said.
Hyper says, when I buy comics at used bookstores, I usually have someone comment that they didn't know comics were still made.
Yes.
Many think when spinner racks went away, so did comics.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because Barry, who is Tommy's partner at Kablam and my longtime friend, I've stolen this from him. He says comics are a destination and not basically comics are a destination buy, not an impulse buy anymore.
Yeah.
If you're going to buy comics, you specifically have to get in your car, drive to the comic shop with the intent to buy. You don't. It's not like you're out at the grocery store and say, "I got to get bread and milk." Oh, look, here's a comic I'm going to buy. You don't. No one does that anymore.
No.
You know. Vic says,
but Archie has kept themselves alive for decades, selling digest right at the grocery store.
Right at the checkout line.
You know, and that's amazing on them that they've been able to. And I'm sure that they've literally been kept alive from that. I would think by doing that. They tried doing a set of Marvel digests a couple of years back when the movies were first coming out. I wish they'd have kept doing it.
Yeah.
But you could tell a lot of the material if you looked at the spine of the outside of the book. You can see where the old material ended and the new material started, because the new material all had black frames around it.
Yeah.
And looked incredibly dingy because they were made to bounce off of the bright paper, as opposed to those old classic comics that, they had newsprint soaking that ink in.
Yeah. Vic says, with my generation, another problem is people refuse to acknowledge American comics. Yeah, there is that. Vic is a slightly younger. It says to the Dollar Tree.
Yeah.
Hyper says some Dollar Tree have comics. Most I go in don't carry them though. New comic based on a toy. It's a new comic based on a toy they carry. So
that's what Steven said. It's drawn by. He said this was at the checkout, so it was up front. John Heenbeck, Mike Manley. We know Mike Manley.
Yeah.
And Chris Maharan, I guess that's like
Marinan. Chris Marinan?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh wow, cool.
Good for them.
Yeah.
And it was, it's based off of some of their toys or whatever. It's got he's got me a picture of it. It's something called Final Fiction First Impact.
Are they all Dollar Tree comics?
I'm trying to look at the cover. It doesn't say anything on it. It just they can't waste any more ink. It's the Dollar Tree, so it doesn't have. It's the origin story, #1, February 2022. So apparently they've been working on this for a while.
It's been out for a while then.
Yeah. So anyway,
those supply chain problems have really screwed up a lot of.
Oh, we're having problems with paper. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was gonna say Walmart's still pimping comics.
Oh, they still have the Allegiant comics?
Yeah, they got the Allegiance. There is another company doing the same thing as Allegiance. They got like the cube with the sections that the books are sitting in, back by the electronics department there.
Oh wow!
And then I forgot, it's another A name, but it's got like really high end names like Pop Mahan and all those guys. I mean, so they got talent behind them. And then up front they're peddling like plasticed up DC and Marvel books up front by the Yu-Gi-Oh cards and stuff like that. So I mean, Walmart's still
by the cigarettes.
Well, that's Kyle says Walmart has DC and Marvel comics too, where I live.
And they were moving those 100-page super spectaculars for a while.
Yeah.
Out there, that was an awesome product. I just wish they didn't have so many continued stories in them.
Yeah.
Because back when I was buying the super spectaculars as a kid, I used to eat those up. Everything in there was self-contained.
Yep.
You know.
Hyper says I found them in 2 stores. One had them with the books and one with the toys.
Sweet.
And then he says Walmart has repacks of Marvel and DC, usually with the trading cards. So, Randy,
I've bought more books and graphic novels from the end run stores. We have a chain of like odd lot retailers or wholesalers up here called Ollie's that ended up picking up all of the Marvel and DC warehouses, and we're moving books for $6, $8, $9, $10 bucks a head. The trade books. I walked out of there with hundreds of dollars worth of stuff.
Oh my! I need to find an Ollie's.
There's one right by the house.
It's all long gone, and picked over now because they haven't had any new supply in months. So.
Kyle says I quit working at Walmart the year they started carrying comics, which kind of upset me.
Bad time.
Vic says slightly younger. I'm Gen Z. Okay. So I got my clock says 9:20 here. So we got to get to now, Randy. What's the status of Arrow Comics now after the whole
Liberty fiasco?
What's the status of Arrow now, and what does the future look like for you?
Well, I've got print files. We've got a lot of books. We've had a lot of attention brought to us because of this fiasco. A lot of people have contacted me that I hadn't heard from in literally years.
Wow. That
are looking to get back into the business. So we're probably going to be doing a combination of crowdfunding and wholesaling out. I'm not really planning on anything at the moment because I'm working on my own book, because I spent from October to November mid-October to the end of November last year on a respirator. So with COVID, and died twice on the respirator and came back and was,
oh my goodness.
There's a whole story behind that I'm putting together into a book. And I'm still researching the some parts of it in order to make sure that I have everything right and the facts are all there. But when I was in the hospital paralyzed, once I was able to move my hands and my feet, I knew I was going to get full mobility back again. It was just a matter of time. But I got a hold of a pencil and got the physical therapist to give me a clipboard with a pad of paper and sat there and started drawing. So I drew the first drawing I did was a cartoon dog, and she stood there. The physical therapist stood there stunned, couldn't believe that I could draw it. And I said, it's all hand-eye coordination and muscle memory. Here we go, And again, it was like circle, 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 and triangle for the nose and that kind of thing. And she ended up getting that picture. I haven't seen it since, but I kept everything else after that and started doing editorial cartoons of my situation.
Yeah,
at the time and all the troubles I was going through.
Kyle says, glad you're still around.
Yeah, thanks. Me too.
Absolutely.
So does Hyper. He says, dadgum, Randy, glad you're still with us.
Yeah, thanks. So anyway, because of this deal that we were in with Liberty, I got to know Luke Stone quite a bit, and he was under for 8 weeks as well on a respirator.
I didn't realize that.
And had to come back all from scratch. Once you're on the respirator long enough, every muscle in your body atrophies, and that was my problem.
That's what happened to my dad.
I woke up having to relearn everything. Had to have my eyes readjust, my ears readjust, my throat readjust. I had a speech therapist for a bit, a lot of physical and occupational therapy in order to get back up to speed. But I'm pretty much back up to speed now. Actually, I'm starting to have the problem trying to keep the weight down. So that's been a challenge because there were a couple of months there that I wasn't eating, physically eating. I was tube fed and I missed food too much.
Yeah.
But I'm getting back to normal. I'm still thinner than what I was when I first started. So once I got to the nursing home from the hospital, I had lost at least 100 pounds. I was really emaciated.
Randy, I didn't know all that.
Just dropped it. Gone. So that freaked the wife out the first, and that with the COVID and all the restrictions on top of that, the wife was kept away from me almost the entire time.
That's
I was
just
down,
not right.
Yeah,
and not given any. Yeah, I know in Florida they've changed that now, but I wish that law would go all over the place because I just went through it, and she got the only communication she got from the hospital. Honest to goodness, outside of her calling them and begging them for updates. Once I stopped texting her, which was, I went into all I remember is going into the emergency room, being stuck in their COVID room, what they called their COVID room, for 8 hours. Right. And then wheeled out. And from there on, I don't remember anything until I woke up after being on the respirator. But in between that time, I had some crazy lucid dreams that were apparently drug induced because apparently I put up a hell of a fight going down on the respirator, which I would have fought tooth and nail if I was, wasn't drugged out of my mind.
Right.
But ended up traveling the country, never even left Flint, ended up way over on the West Coast and doing some bizarre, I'm putting it all in the book. It's right. That's part of the reason why the book is taking so long, because there's really like 3 parts to it: before, during, and after.
Wow.
I'm in it, but it's going to be a funny book. I swear it will. But anyway,
Vic says, happy you're still here to keep going.
Yeah. Thank you. Very much. But anyway, I got involved with Luke Stone. Luke did Hybrids, which he's crowdfunded a couple of times, and he went into Hawk paying to have all of that remastered.
Yeah.
In order to make it accessible to a larger audience. There's a Hybrid Sons of God book, and he is currently doing campaigns, and he's got hybrids running. He's just started another campaign called Rift Riders, which is a science fiction book. That's also it looks beautiful. It's got an anime feel to it. It's just a gorgeous book. But I'm still doing Herobot Zero. I've got 2 more issues of print files on that. And then for month 2, I was going to do a fantasy book called Calico of Shard, which is artwork by C. Michael Lanning.
Okay, cool.
You might know C. Michael.
Sure, yeah, we know C.
And also a superhero book called Paragon by J.R. Harris and myself. It's a character I created a while ago, something that I really wanted to get out there. And we were looking for properties that were accessible for a large audience. So Arrow did fantasy book, a superhero team book, a superhero individual book, an anthology book, and that cartoon robot book. So we were, like I said, I was in full production on all of those titles and was working on those. And then I went down on COVID, and then the deal fell through. So we're left with the issues of the number 1s. We've printed on demand extra copies of Calico and Paragon that we've got available. And we're just going to keep going a lot slower in production than what we were planning on. I'm working on the COVID book first and getting that done and out. And then before the deal happened, we were still looking at restarting Arrow Comics, because I had talked to Ralph about restarting Arrow at the time when he was alive, and he told me to go ahead and take the masthead and run it, keep it creator owned, and run it for as long and as far as I can possibly run it. So we've got a lot of other Arrow Comics products that are coming out. We've got a lot of campaigns in the pipeline that we're going to be starting. I'm probably going to be campaigning my COVID book during the time, only an exact year later, the time that I was down on the respirator, which will probably be from mid-October to the end of November.
Gotcha.
At this point, I want to make sure there's enough of the book done that I'm going to be able to hit a good deadline and be able to show a bunch of the artwork off. But I'm doing it all myself. It's using a lot of different styles and.
Well, and a lot of people don't realize, and I know you know this, but a lot of people don't realize that when you make comics, and then you also publish the work of others, that takes away from your time.
It does.
Making your comic.
Yep.
Yeah. Hyper says, "Is Randy on the Twitter? Are you on Twitter, Randy?"
I try to stay off of Twitter. I am on Twitter under Randy Zim, but I'm hardly ever up there because I like trying to get work done. And
Hyper's a Twitterer.
Well, between Facebook and YouTube, for me, it takes up most of my time because I'm a bad rabbit hole chaser. you know, especially on YouTube. I'll go down all sorts of different viral holes, you know.
Vic says Randy went on a trip.
I did in more ways than one, mostly in my head, though.
Yeah. Doc Blaylock says, "Hail Donald, hail panel, and hail chat." What's up, Doc? Cool. Good to see you here. Apparently, he knows Hyper.
Cool icon, Doc.
Hyper says, "Remember to like, subscribe, everyone. Thank you so much, Hyper. Don't know what we would do without you." Well, Randy, what else? So people need to start looking for you on crowdfunding.
Primarily on Facebook, yeah. Crowdfunding. Arrow Comics will be crowdfunding. Luke Stone Studios crowdfunds Luke's books. He's got a few other titles in the works that he's looking forward to doing. Nice quality books.
Yeah. I've got all the hybrids.
We also have Marv from over in Portugal. He does a book called The Sin Killer, and that has the Arrow banner on it because Marv just keeps getting better and better. I just looked over his second issue last night and was just drooling over it. Just amazing stuff. And
of course, Russ, right?
And well, yeah, I forgot to mention Russ. Sorry, Russ. Yeah, we picked up.
I got your back.
Thank you for that. We picked up Only Death Can Save Us.
Yeah.
Which was a campaign that Russ had. He did some original material for the book that'll be in book 2 of the thicker book of the collection. And then we're going to print at least another 3 or 4 issues of that, depending upon how much Russ wants us to go. But that schedule is pretty liquid at the moment. I'm looking for more wholesalers out there. I'm looking for more means of distribution and someplace that we can get a regular amount of books out to folks to sustain, the company.
Right. Yeah.
And if not, then we'll be doing a lot of crowdfunding campaigns.
Yeah. Well, I think, Randy, as you know, because I've been on your show enough, that's kind of what our model is we crowdfund to get our books printed and out there. And just move on to the next one. Vic says, make mine Silverline.
There you
or
go.
Make mine Arrow tonight, I guess.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
And Doc Blaylock says Marv is amazing. So,
yes, he is.
Yeah.
And he's getting better all the time, which is even crazier. So I always love seeing that. It's part of the fun, though, of independent and alternative books, is seeing the evolution of people figuring out what they're doing and getting better and better and more polished as they go along. So.
That's something that I always enjoyed, kind of as an editor, is watching watching these guys they get better, and better and better and better. Well, all right, Randy. So we're out of time. Let me see here.
You get me yapping and you can't shut me up. That's the thing.
No, that's good. So where can folks find you other than Facebook? You got any other socials?
Remember when you were on last Sunday on Sunday Funnies, and we mentioned Comics by Night?
Comics by Night. Okay.
Yeah. I'm doing a program Friday mornings, early morning, on the Independent Comic Indie Comics Network.
Okay.
Called Comics by Night. Russ is on it. Glenn B. Fleming is on it. Cool. And whoever else we can get on there. We want to turn that into a classroom where we're teaching people about different aspects of sequential art.
Nice.
That's what we're aiming for Comics by Night. And then I have the Zimcast that's on Wednesday evenings at 8 p.m.
Yeah.
And also the Sunday.
We can't promote that one because,
Okay, don't promote that one then.
Sunday.
Same time as our Wednesday Wham.
Oh, okay. Well, forgive me then. Don't stay on Wednesday Wham. It's all right. I'm grateful that you had me on yapping. So.
Just kidding.
Then Sunday mornings we do Sunday Funnies.
People change the channel like we used to do, right?
No. Watch you guys live.
Change back and forth.
When you're done, and then Thursday or Thursday morning, we're archived over at the Indie Comics Network. Just go over there at your leisure and just listen to us then. There's plenty of time to listen to everybody.
Absolutely.
Well, almost. Plus, on YouTube, here's what I like, especially on those sites that you're kind of leery about the people on. You can up the speed.
Mm-hmm.
So there's nothing more fun than listening to chipmunks argue serious topics.
I'll tell you a secret, Randy. So I teach, college classes.
Mm-hmm.
Part of my classes are online and part of them are on campus. When the ones online do presentations, I require that they upload their presentations to YouTube, simply so that I can increase it.
Because now you got to get in trouble.
No. They're not. Well, Kyle.
You can still hear them. They just talk faster. So.
Yeah. Well, I still watch them. That they just talk fast. Kyle, that you better not be telling anybody about this if you're still here. I do that. That way I can set the speed faster and watch their presentation still real fast. So.
Now you can always slow it down if you need to concentrate on something. Yeah.
Yeah. Kyle says, I was just getting ready to say something. Shh.
Okay.
Shh. Yeah. Okay. So you guys.
Sunday mornings, 9 a.m., Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. Or listen to you guys live and just listen to us later. And then Friday mornings at 5 a.m. We do Comics by Night.
Man, that's early.
It is, but I dropped the wife off at work at 4:30. So
okay.
I was like, hey, I'm usually awake anyway for a couple hours after I drop her off. So because I don't want to be. Which
explains why you get Glenn and Russ, because
exactly right.
It's pre-lunch for them.
It's brunch time for them. So it's really Comics by Brunch over there. Okay. We already figured that out. We had our first show just a couple of days ago, and we had decent enough numbers for me to keep going on it. So we're just going to keep going. So
Hyper says I'm going to be in the dean's office now. Oh my goodness! I hope
boy, got you in trouble.
Yeah,
sorry, Roland.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
Just tell them it's so funny because you keep thinking Alvin while they're speaking. It's all
that's
good.
Right. Yeah. Well, Randy, you know the routine. Everybody's going to say where we can find them here. Hang on after our closing here. We'll chit chat a little bit when we're done. Roberta.
Yes.
Tell folks where they can find you online on the interwebs.
Look for me on Instagram and Facebook under Roberta Conroy, and right here on Sundays.
Sweet.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, we're going to run a Kickstarter video, which is about a 4-minute video. I couldn't get it down shorter. It's about a 4-minute video, and then we're going to have our closing bumper and then out. Wubba, it is so good to see your face. Brother, you going to start joining us?
Yeah.
All right, good.
Awesome.
Listen,
the best I can.
Tommy, you heard him, right?
He's going to try.
Yes.
The best I can, yeah.
Well, where can folks find you on the interwebs?
Just on Facebook. I used to have a bunch of other stuff, the Twitter and all that. It's all closed down. I ain't got time for all that stuff.
It's good because you're drawing cat and mouse, right?
With my work.
Okay, good.
So.
There you go.
He's so busy. Yeah.
Doing
cat and mouse.
Drawing cat and mouse. All right. Tommy, what about you? Where can folks find you on the
internet? All right, you got to tell me. Can you hear me at all?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, my other mic died on me, so I had to switch to this. Well, you're going to be able to find me this coming up weekend at the Daytona Beach Comic Book Show. Not in Daytona because it's in DeLand, but it is the Daytona Comic Beat. But you can go look me up on Facebook or go to the Google and type Florimonte, FLORIMONTE, and you'll be able to find me. But I will be at the show with all the rest of the Silverliners.
That's right. There's going to be a dozen of us there.
Yep.
You guys need to make sure you make plans to show up there. And I'm Roland. You can find me on all the social medias. Look for Roland Man Roland, something like that. And we are going to go out by letting you listen to our Kickstarter video, and then we'll do the closing video. Hi, and welcome to the Kickstarter. I am Roland Man, and I'm the chief cook and bottle washer at Silverline Comics, a genre-spanning independent comic and graphic novel publisher. And I'm here to tell you about our Kickstarter number 20. 20. Can you believe we've done 20 Kickstarters? That's right, 20 Kickstarters. We have successfully funded and shipped 20 Kickstarters. That's 20. That means we are making comic books. And I'm here to tell you about our next batch of Kickstarter comics that you know you want to support it if you can. So I'm going to stop talking, and I'm going to let Brent Larson tell you about Kalis. Take it away, Brent.
Okay, we'll finally get to see how the story ends. Wait a minute. That's it? A tree floating in space? That's so weird. Hi, I'm Brent Larson. You may remember me from such creator-owned comics as Kalis. Some of you at the end of the story thought, this is no way for a story to end, and I agree, which is why I'm excited to announce that in September we will be kickstarting Kalis Volume 2. It'll tell more of the story of where Scott Anders actually has been, why he wants to go back, what's the CIA doing in the meantime, and who is the mysterious group that's trying to keep him here on Earth. It's very exciting, the art is wonderful, and I'm really excited to share it with you. So thanks for your support, and we'll see you in the comics.
Thank you, Brent. And now here's Rob Davis to tell us about Twilight Grim.
20 years ago, the city of Hallowed Heights was nearly destroyed as the result of warfare between humans and vampires. In its aftermath, the two factions forged a most unusual peace plan. A high and heavily guarded wall now splits the two sides of the city. On one side of the wall reside the middle and upper classes of humans. It is clean, beautiful, and safe. On the other side of the wall, where a teenaged petty thief named Susie Q has just been exiled, lies the darkest and most horrible ghetto imaginable. Here, amongst squalor and vice, dwell the poor, the homeless, the forgotten, and the vampires. Led by the family of Gregor Radovic. As long as the vampires stay on their side of the wall, the humans on the other side are willing to pretend they don't exist and let them rule over this so-called blood zone as they see fit. This includes turning a blind eye as the vampires feast upon the zone's human inhabitants. Amidst rumors that the long-held truce may be unraveling, there's no human law in the blood zone, save for that dispensed by a mysterious and violent young man who has appointed himself its sole guardian from the depredations of the vampires. His name is Twilight Grim.
Thank you, Rob. We've also got Sirens #2 and Scary Book #1, which is part of our remix line. You're going to love those. Horror goes in with our Silverline Horror Extravaganza. So, back it if you can. If you can't back it, we get it. We're in an inflation economy. You can share it. Tell all the people you know who love comic books that we make comic books and we ship them out, because obviously this is Kickstarter number 20. And until then, remember to make mine Silverline.
Hi, my name is Sergio Cariello, and make mine Silverline.